Welcome to Unexplained Reality, the podcast about the strange and unexplained but real. We talk about Bigfoot and aliens and UFOs, missing people, and historic events and figures. And if you have an encounter, experience, or just want to chat, send us an email, unexplained.reality@yahoo.com. You can also find us on the Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Come connect with us. If you want to donate, you got a couple dollars in your pocket, you want to give to the show, you can find us on the Patreon and the PayPal. Ooh, yeah.
Hey, quit making all that noise, redneck. Quit whooping hollering.
A paragraph on a piece of paper, held by a magnet on the refrigerator, said it all. You can't change the mind of an 18-year-old. Cloud of dust coming from a Gran Torino, taking off. Population, one less restless soul, runaway to below.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Unexplained Reality with Brian Quinn and
Harrison Quinn.
You got it right that time. Awesome.
Yeah, I got it right, but it didn't sound very impressive. Just like and dun 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 dun. Harrison Quinn.
I'll try to make it better next time. Sorry.
Yeah.
So, how's school, buddy?
Pretty good. Yeah, I've got guitar, which is pretty neat. Got some other classes, and the teachers are very teachery. So yeah,
Okay.
I'm gonna have a jammed year.
Yeah. Well, it should be too bad. You got some good classes, some distraction classes, I guess you would call them.
Yeah, I don't have any bad teachers. It's just
Nobody likes bad teachers.
yeah, they just sound like teachers that are very expect a lot, have very high standards. So it's going to be tough.
That stinks. Teachers that expect a lot, high standards.
For real.
I like the low standard teachers.
Exactly.
Good. I hope everybody else has had a good week. Sorry we weren't here last week. Didn't do a episode. We had too much stuff going on. We got kind of a mess here at the house, and I had some other stuff going on. So, anyways, we're back, and sorry about that. Let's see. We have. I guess we should start off as usual to give everybody our info. You want to do it, buddy, or you want me to do it?
I'll let you do it.
Okay. If you have a experience or an encounter, you just want to talk to us, you can hit us up on unexplained.reality@yahoo.com. You can catch us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You can come join the group. We have a Facebook page up, but we also have a Facebook group, and we prefer for you to come hit us up on that and join the group. And we're also on YouTube. All these episodes go out to YouTube automatically, so you can get them there also. We have Patreon and PayPal, so if you got a little extra cabbage in your pocket that you could donate towards podcasts, it'd be awesome. I guess that's the standard stuff, and we can't express enough how interested we are to talk to people that have had experiences. I'm working on a lead of somebody, and if I can get this person lined up and they're willing to talk to us, it's going to be pretty awesome. You're going to love what this person has to say, and the experiences that they have on a regular basis. So it's going to be pretty cool if I can get you lined up, man.
Yeah, sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah, so see, I'm working on it, and we'll see if that happens. If not, I think at the least we'll be able to get the stories from this person and be able to make them an episode. But I'm really hoping they'll come on the line and tell on the show and tell firsthand, what they experienced. So looking forward to that. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully in the next couple episodes, we might be able to get that rolling.
Yep.
Let's see what else. I guess that's all I've got other than getting into the news. You got anything you want to add before we hit news items? Because there's quite a few tonight.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything.
All right. The first, I've got quite a few from Phantoms and Monsters, phantomsandmonsters.com. And once again, Chicago's all crazy going on up there. They got crazy stuff going on. The first one came from yesterday, August 23rd. And its title here, Shadowy Being Lurking About in Chicago's Wicker Park. Perfect. Lon Strickler says he received this on the following account, August 23rd, 2017, from a witness who lives in the vicinity of North Leavitt Street and West Lemoyne Street in the Wicker Park neighborhood of Chicago, Illinois. The person writes, says, I guess I'm reluctant to speak about it because I know what I saw. It's hard to believe that it's real. I'm still feeling pretty uncomfortable. I can provide my number if necessary for you. I'm not trying to be difficult, but I'm just still shocked by everything. On Monday, August 21st, around 8:20 p.m. Central Time, I was on a phone call for about 40 minutes. I took the call in my bedroom in my apartment. I'm in a third-floor unit. The window of my bedroom overlooks the backyard of the building next to me. To the right of this window, about 5 to 6 feet away, is the neighbor's roof. It is not close enough for anyone to reach my window unaided. There is no balcony or ladder up to my window as well. About midway through the phone call, out the window, which was to my right, with the curtain and drapes pulled aside, out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement and noticed a change in light in my room. I saw what looked like a human-shaped shadow from the mid-torso up in the window. As soon as I turned to look, the shadow moved unnaturally fast to the left and up and out of sight. Its movements gave the impression it was taking off to fly. It looked like it used the wall of my building to jump up and away. The shadow was dark gray. When it moved, its body was large enough to block a substantial amount of light, giving me the impression it was long or tall. The whole experience had to be under 10 seconds, but left me very unnerved. I had run out of my room trying to explain what I just saw over the phone. About 10 minutes later, I finally felt brave enough to go back to my room and shut the blinds and curtains. I did not see anything unusual at that time. I have not really felt comfortable since. The next day, the person I had been speaking with showed me your site, as they had done research into what I had seen. I felt pretty uncomfortable reading those other stories, but could see similarities and was very reluctant to contact you because I am having trouble accepting this as real. But I was encouraged to reach out and am hoping to gain more peace of mind. I'm curious to know if any of these sightings have been violent or if anything bad has happened to the people. Does that thing make repeat visits or try to get into buildings? Is there anything I shouldn't do if it comes back? Is there any correlation in the sightings? Any ideas of what this is, or what its appearance means? That's pretty. I mean, we saw in the Chicago episode we did last, where there was a number of one particular sighting with the two girls that lived together, and the thing was outside one of them's room with the glowing red eyes and stuff. So it sounds like this goes right in line with the other sightings in Chicago. It says in here, Lon Strickler, I guess, made some notes that when he received the initial email from the witness, she was very reluctant to produce evidence. Her description of the being was very vague since she only saw an outline of the shadowy figure. That's wow. That's something is wicked, wild going on in Chicago.
Yeah.
No doubt. This next story is also from yesterday, August 23rd, 2017. And it looks like it's out of Grafton, Massachusetts. I don't know why I have such a hard time pronouncing that state. Anyways. Person writes, says, I was in my bed. I was struggling to sleep, so I decided to listen to Theta Wave binaural beats. I know what they're. I can't. Whatever. You know what I'm talking about. The Theta Wave. But I was such a moron. Some music. After what felt like a few minutes, I saw a silver rope hanging above my bed. I reached up and touched it. I felt like I needed to climb it. I realized that I was no longer in my body, but clutching to the strange silver rope. I was being raised higher and higher. I found myself surrounded in a corridor of what seemed like peach-colored flowers. They were soft and brushing against my skin. My clothes had changed. I was wearing a silver dress similar to the material in the rope. I stepped out of the corridor and into a strange grass. The sun was shining, but it was not like the earth's sun. It was dimmer. The hue of the sky was golden and not the harsh burning blue of home. I saw animals I cannot explain and plants, trees, and flowers I cannot describe. I saw women and children happily playing in the sunshine. A being approached me different to the others and knew my name. It spoke to me and I was not afraid. It felt like I knew this being. It felt like I knew this being. She said, "Welcome home. It's time to remember." She was about my height, metallic skin, hairless, and big dark eyes. I said it felt like I knew this place, but I couldn't remember. She said, "This is what home used to look like until the Great War happened. The masculine and the feminine were always in balance until one sickly creature broke away from the natural order and sought to control all. The feminine was suppressed, and eventually our planet was destroyed. We saved some of our children and nurtured them on a neighboring planet. We let them sleep and forget until the time has come to awaken. It's almost time to come home, and before my eyes I saw great atomic explosions and the plants and animals turned to dust. I realized that I was on Mars. I looked to the being and said she said she was deformed because of a life of radiation in space has altered their appearance over the many years. I was her family. She would return for me. Then I remembered nothing. I opened my eyes and it was 6 a.m. I felt exhausted. I'm not crazy. I didn't imagine this. My house is full of the smell of this foreign flower that lined the corridor I walked through. I do not drink alcohol. Do not take drugs. Wow. That is weird. Wow. That's a trippy experience there. I don't even know where to go with that.
Yeah, that's pretty strange.
This is from 2016, October 2016, Unearthly Howl. It says late one night, this is also from Fandoms and Monsters. Late one night, last October 2016, I was out in my backyard walking my dog. All of a sudden, the most unearthly sounding howl I've ever heard in my life rang out from somewhere in the field directly behind my property. Every hair on my dog's back stood straight up, and she bolted for the front door of the house, dragging me behind her, still holding on to the leash attached to her collar. If I had to describe what it sounded like, the closest thing I could say it resembled would be the roar of a silverback gorilla when it's enraged. A short while later, I went back outside with a super bright LED flashlight and caught a glimpse of a large shadowy figure behind some trees bordering the edge of my property where it butts up to the field. I didn't stick around to find out what it was. The feeling of dread was simply overwhelming. I wonder where that was from. It doesn't say. No, it doesn't say where that happened. I'd like to know where that happened. Definitely sounds like a Sasquatch. The Sasquatch was out there yelling.
It does sound like that, doesn't it?
It does, and he was out there thinking, I wish I had a Big Mac or something. You better run up to the McDonald's, and while you're at it, get me a silver bullet to wash it down with.
Spirit water.
Spirit water. That's what they like to drink, silver bullets, man. Oh, this is cool. This is from New Mexico. I'm not going to read the whole story here, but basically just give a synopsis. This man and woman have security lights. They live in like a duplex, pretty new residence, and they have security lights or security cameras on their property, out front. And they're sitting there. They have security cameras in their house because I've seen the footage of that, and you can see the man jump up. He looks over at the monitor where they had the outside cameras, displaying to, and he jumps up because he sees something, looks, and then they, it's captured on DVR, and they played it back, and you can see like the upper torso of a person walk across behind their cars and across the driveway. That's pretty wicked. That just happened, I guess, just a couple days ago. But
no thanks.
yeah, for real, it does. It was really, really creepy. Well, I'm gonna read one more here. This is also Phantoms and Monsters. This is someone that says unknown winged creature in backyard. Says, hi, I'm not a person who sees things or dabbles in the dark arts. I'm not a drinker and I do not take any drugs. I'm a Christian who works with individuals who have special needs and have my degree in psychology. What happened in 2008 I still cannot explain, nor do I understand it. In 2008 I lived in Ohio. One night during the summer, June to July, I was on the phone with my friend around 12 a.m. My dog and I were in the backyard and I felt a gust of air. A warm, tingly sensation ran through my body, and then I saw a shadow. I couldn't speak or move yet. My eyes were trained on the figure. It was large, black, winged, had red eyes, white dots along its back. It appeared to be frozen in time in the corner of the yard by the trees. After a few moments passed, I eked out my dog's name. He was barking at whatever the thing was. My friend, who was still on the phone, was worried, and once the thing left the yard, I was able to get up the courage to run inside and tell her what I saw. I have no clue what it was. I don't think it wanted to harm me, but it was terrifying nonetheless. I was terrified nonetheless. I hope you guys can figure this out, since I still can't explain what my dog and I saw in the backyard that night. He doesn't say how big it was. It was large, black, winged, had red eyes, and white dots along its back. I wish it'd give you a size. Because, that could be like,
Yeah.
it could be, what are those things called? An owl. Yeah, those. It could be an owl, because they get pretty big. But he doesn't give any kind of reference to it, just... unknown winged creature in the backyard. Alright, that's what I have from there. I've got a few more here. This one here is from Cryptozoology News. Actually, the rest of them are. And this one is from the great state of South Carolina, right here where we're sitting right now. And this is from I don't know. I live in the state, been here all my life, and I don't know how you say this. Pacolet, South Carolina. Spartanburg County. A man claims South Carolina man witnesses 2 red Bigfoot creatures. A man in Spartanburg County claims he saw Bigfoot twice. The man reported the sighting. Pacolet resident Charles McDougall told Cryptozoology News on Tuesday that he was out in the woods when he saw the creatures. I was hunting last deer season when I saw it the first time. I was totally astounded and thought I was seeing things, said McDougall, who also provided a phone number to talk about the event. The man explains that a few weeks later, the Bigfoot creature showed up again. It was in the same area. I was so shocked I didn't think about using my weapon. McDougal described the animal as a 7-foot tall biped with reddish brown hair at a weight of approximately 300 pounds. I doubt it weighed 300 pounds if it was 7 feet tall. Unless it was like anorexic. Anyways, with his deer season fast approaching, I will be hunting the same area again, and this year I'm not sure that I won't use my weapon if I see this thing again. Cryptozoology News advised the man not to shoot the alleged creature and to gather photographic evidence instead. Yes, because people always take that as being legit. The Paglet resident claims he has told friends and family, but that no one believes him. Everyone tells me I was imagining this, he explains. What? Well, I haven't seen this one. Hold on, I gotta click on this. This says in 2011, a South Carolina man had claimed to have clearly seen a Bigfoot creature just outside his home in Lexington County. That's where I work. I gotta click on that and find out what this is all about. Batesburg, Leesville? What? Well, obviously he was there going to Sheely's. Why else would Bigfoot be in Batesburg, Leesville? He went to Sheely's to get some barbecue. A man claims he saw a large bipedal creature outside his home in Lexington County just outside of Batesburg, Leesville. 20-year-old Lewis told Cryptozoology News he was sitting on his front porch when the incident occurred. I was sitting alone. I saw movement in the tree line, he said about the midnight encounter in the summer of 2011. At first, explains Lewis, he believed the animal was probably a deer, but that as it stepped out of the shadows, he was able to see it clearly. It came into focus. I ran inside searching for anyone to see what I saw, and maybe even to find a gun if need be. The Batesburg resident says the sighting lasted about 5 minutes and described the creature as 6 feet tall, shaggy, bipedal. This is a local legend around the neighborhood about the shaggy thing. I never believed it, but now I'm convinced. I've seen the shaggy thing, said Lewis. He did not present video or photographic evidence of the alleged incident. Wow, I never knew that. I've not heard of that. Have you heard of that? Hello.
Sorry. No, I don't think I've ever heard of that. I mean, I've never been in Lexington. I mean, I've been in Lexington.
You lived in Lexington. What are you talking about?
Yes, I lived in Lexington, but I was too small to remember it. I was just a little kid. I don't remember that.
That's no excuse. Being a little
kid.
Whatever. Maybe we should hypnotize you so you can remember. All right. This next one, but that's pretty cool. I mean, that's very close to home. I mean, I feel like they're closer to people than what people actually think, you know. I think they just have an uncanny ability to hide themselves. So, yeah, that's cool though. I didn't know there was any sightings in Lexington County. Not out that way, at least. Maybe southern Lexington County or something. But getting down towards the Congaree and stuff, because you got, you know, there's been plenty of sightings down towards where you got the Lizard Man that we did the episode on, and most people believe that was probably just a Sasquatch. And then you get further down, if you follow that watershed kind of down, it eventually hits down around Charleston and the Francis Marion Forest, which people have witnessed, had sightings there before. So, okay, this next one is cryptozoologynews.com also, and it's a Colorado man reports 2 Bigfoot sightings. This is from Conifer, Colorado. A plant manager in Colorado claims he saw 2 gorilla-like creatures. 54-year-old Tony Piratelli, who also provided a series of pictures and video containing tracks of the alleged primate, says the sightings took place inside his family property. I was taking the dogs, who were very frightened, to do their business at night, he told Cryptozoology News. It started with the early January footprints, and then a few months later I noticed something at 2 a.m. in the morning, or 2 in the morning. The first time he encountered the creature, the man reportedly spotted a pair of white eyes, then the clear outline of a primate against the moonlight. It was a large gorilla-type creature staring right at me 200 feet away. It was at the porch of my house, which was on a small hill, and the moon was shining behind it. We stood there staring at each other for what seemed a long time, but it was more like 5 to 10 minutes. Piratelli adds that even though he felt frozen with fear, he also was intrigued by it. Eventually, he explains he walked back into the house to get his father, but by then the creature had left. He described the biped as a large gorilla, not an ape. It had facial outline features like a mixture between a gorilla, like the neck. The arms were massive. It was sitting on its hind legs, ready to move. According to the Colorado man, a few months later, he encountered a smaller version of the purported creature. It seemed curious, but it never got any closer than 75 feet, and it stayed among the trees where it could hide itself. And apparently he took some pictures of tracks, but that's cool. 5 to 10 minutes to sit there and stare at each other, that's pretty long time. Alright, this one's a good one. This is cryptozoology news too. This is the last thing I have tonight. Reptilian humanoid encounter reported in California. This is in Colusa, California. A woman in Northern California says she saw a shape-shifting reptilian humanoid. Wow, it just got better. The woman, whose name was kept anonymous, claimed that she was sitting on her house's doorstep with her dog when the encounter took place. I saw a man walking up the sidewalk at 3 a.m. smoking a cigarette by holding it under like a European and one arm behind his back. As he passed me, he nodded, and so did I. I thought it strange being so late. He walked around the corner and was gone, she told MUFON about the 2014 encounter. The woman goes on to say that the same man showed up at the same spot a week later and that they exchanged some words. I saw him at 3 a.m. again. He smiled and said very softly and meekly, "Hello," and bowed his head. I returned the greeting. It is a small rural farming town. No one was out, and I could hear his hard-soled shoes make a clatter in the still of the night. But it was 7 days later, she explains, that things would take a different turn. I slept in the double front doors. I slept with the double front doors open into my studio-type home for ventilation. At 3 a.m., I heard the man walking by. She claims that when the man turned and looked at her, his face was nothing like it was before. He had a reptilian face. He was wearing a hooded jacket. We both stared at each other for about 10 seconds. The Californian described the humanoid as having a scaly face with empty eye sockets instead of a regular mouth with lips and teeth. She added he had a small slit. He had a brow ridge. The scales looked like those of a snake and had a bluish color to it. She also provided a sketch of the purported being. According to the woman, the alleged humanoid walked away, although he was still wearing the same shoes. I felt it was the same man, but was seeing a reptile being, she said. Some paranormal researchers believe the existence of a race of snake-like underground creatures. Proponents of the reptilian theory, such as David, suggest a conspiracy involving these humanoids taking over planet Earth. Yeah, so that's creepy. Sounds a little...
That's a pit of snakes. Ha ha!
Oh, Lord. Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of people that claim to have run-ins with these type creatures, so who knows? We know there's strange things out there we can't explain, so that's creepy. I think I'd quit sitting out on my porch at 3 o'clock in the morning smoking cigarettes. I'd definitely be closing my door and keeping it locked. Yeah, I just don't. No, I wouldn't do that. I don't like to be scared by creepy people. Anyways, that's the articles I have. Oh, while I'm thinking about it, if you haven't listened to the latest episode of the Confessionals called Killing Bigfoot, I believe it is, it's awesome. You should listen to it. I'm not going to get any more than that. Just listen to that episode and It's pretty cool because if I get into it, it's going to blow it for you. So I don't want to. It's like telling you about a movie, a big blockbuster movie, before you've seen it. So can't do that. I don't have anything else. Do you have anything else, buddy?
Nope.
All right. So I guess we can roll into our episode tonight. Tonight's episode, we're talking about Henry Hudson and his mysterious life and his mysterious. Can't really call it I guess it's a disappearance, but not really. So, anyways, you'll find out about it. So, bear with us. We're gonna hit that, and we'll see what you think. Henry Hudson has been called one of the world's most famous explorers. He had a pretty interesting life, but there's a lot of question marks and mystery about Henry Hudson. It is believed that he was born in 1565 or to 1570. I've heard both. So somewhere in that time frame. There's no concrete evidence or documentation that is solid for his birth record. In fact, his life really prior to 1607 is pretty much a mystery as a whole. It's not really understood where he learned to sail. A lot of people believe that, although it's not for certain, that he had learned his seafaring trade firsthand, possibly as a fisherman or a sailor. He was in his late 20s when he became a ship commander, so it was obvious that he knew navigation and knew seafaring, and probably worked aboard some types of vessels to hone his skills. So he was married with 3 kids. His wife's name was Catherine, and he had 3 boys named Oliver, John, and Richard. He was English. I think some people said he was Dutch, but he was actually an Englishman. They were considered to be a middle-class family because they were able to live in the vicinity of the Tower of London, and they had a maidservant to help raise the boys. But Henry Hudson's family tree is it's got missing holes, I guess, or missing limbs. So there's lots of questions and areas that have blanks in them. So like I said, before 1607, that's really when his notoriety arrived, and prior to that, there's just not much information about him. And all the pictures, you've seen lots of pictures in history books of Henry Hudson, and pretty much for the most part, they're all fabricated. Because most of those pictures were painted or drawn or whatever after, he was disappeared or had passed away. So there's no authentic portraits of Henry Hudson. The only real documented knowledge of him exists from between 1607 and 1611 when he was doing his voyages. So Henry's first voyage took place or began on May 1st, 1607. The ship that he commanded was called the Hopewell. It was owned by the English Muscovy Company. It's believed that Hudson's family had some sort of history or stake in this Muscovy Company. There's been things, I guess, through documentation that hinted at this possibly being the case. There were a crew of 10 on this ship, plus himself and his son John. I'm taking was probably the oldest. The purpose of the trip was to try to find a passage to Japan and China, which, the Orient, via the North Pole. And the purpose was to bring back silks and spices from that region, because it was known to be rich in spices and silks, so they could make fine garments and spices for intake. because of the days in the North Pole region of the Earth were longer than other parts of the Earth, they actually thought, and it wasn't just Henry Hudson, this was sailors of the time, thought that the waters of the Arctic were warmer because of this. So therefore, it would have clear sailing. Obviously, that warm water theory was wrong, and they were prevented from finding a passage because of ice. Because, in 1600s, I mean, even today ice exists, but with global warming and everything, the 1600s it probably was. You didn't have combustion engines and stuff like that, and other methods of global warming, causing issues in the environment. So the Earth probably was colder, at least on the northern and the southern poles. So I'm sure, they had ran into some serious ice. So that prevented them from finding a passage to the Orient. However, during that trip, Hudson sighted many whales, and he kind of kept count of them. Kind of had he had a log where he'd put entries in it, and when he returned to port, he presented that information about the whales, and therefore he is cited in history as being directly responsible for the hunting or the whale hunting boom of that time. In that particular region, which was, I believe, was off the coast of Iceland, or Greenland, I believe. Unfortunately, this boom eventually led to the depletion of the whale and walrus population in the area. So it was, it was good they probably needed that for resources, those whales and stuff. But as in most things, you have overfishing of an area, and it has detrimental effects on the environment. So that was the case here. On September 15th, 1607, they pulled back into port after being gone for over 3 months. The trip, was a failure. They didn't find a passage through the North Pole to China or Japan. And it was, because of ice. His second voyage took place or began on April 22nd, 1608. So, just a few months later. And again, he was on the Hopewell, and it was owned by the English Muscovy Company. They were looking for a northeast passage to the Orient, up and above the Russian islands of Novye Zemlya. They had a crew of 13, including his son John again. This time he brought on a seasoned seafarer and navigator named Robert Jewett. He had joined the crew for this voyage, and Jewett, I think, was kind of a temperamental, or I guess maybe a curmudgeon type guy. I don't know. I'm just speculating from the text that he was kind of grumpy old guy, and he would eventually be described by Hudson as a man filled, quote unquote, filled with mean tempers. So he was good at what he did, but he was a booger, I guess, to get along with. An interesting fact about this second voyage is on June 25th, 1608, Hudson had a log entry about an incident or an encounter they had on the ship. And it's with a mermaid, what he describes as a mermaid. I didn't intend, when we first started talking about doing this subject, I did this subject more on how Hudson's story ends. And then when I found this log entry about this encounter, I thought, that fits in perfect with what we're doing, in the podcast. But anyways, in this log entry, this is on June 25th, 1608, he puts, quote, "This morning, one of our company looking overboard saw a mermaid, and calling up some of the company to see her, one more came up. By that time, she had come up close to the ship's side, looking earnestly on the men. A little after, a sea came and overturned her. From her navel upwards, her back and her breasts were like a woman's, as they say that saw her, but her body as big as one of us. Her skin very white and long hair hanging down behind of color black. And going down, they saw her tail, which was like the tail of a porpoise and speckled like a mackerel. Their names that saw her were Thomas Hills and Robert Rayner. End quote. So I've read some other information about this sighting online, and of course a lot of people are just discounting it, saying it was nothing more than a seal. But it seems kind of odd, but that they describe hair hanging down the back, they describe breasts, a navel. I don't think seal has any of that. So but the only part that resembles a seal would be a speckled tail, possibly. So very interesting sighting, especially seeing two and the way they described them. I can't put a finger on anything known in the ocean that would resemble that, with long hair and having breasts and and being as big as a man. So it's very interesting. Anyways, they sailed on to North America, but sensing unsettledness in the crew, Hudson decided they should head back to England to avoid, potential mutiny. And that seems to be a common theme with his voyages, is that he must have been a very headstrong fellow, because it seems like every voyage they took, with maybe the exception of the first one, got to a sense of almost mutiny. But you have to also look at the crew. Many of these guys that were hired on as crew members, if they didn't have a specific technical ability as far as seafaring, like navigation or whatever, if they were just basically grunts on the ship, these guys, from what I understand at that time, they would just be basically like street people that they just give a job. They were just a body that come on and to do grunt work, to do whatever the captain told them to. So, I mean, in that situation with those type people, I could possibly understand it being easy for a mutiny to happen. You wouldn't expect something like that with a seasoned sailor and somebody that's used to being on the ocean and committed to a trade and a skill. And so, anyways, so to avoid the mutiny, they turned and started heading back. And on August 26, 1608, they arrived back in England. The Muscovy Company, as you can imagine, were not pleased that this was the second trip they funded, and there was still no route to the Orient. So they basically took the ship from Henry Hudson, since they owned it anyways, and they relieved him of employment. The third voyage of Henry Hudson was funded by the Dutch East India Company. The ship was named the Half Moon. And since Henry Hudson had been released from the Muscovy Company because of his failure on the second voyage, the French wanted to employ him. And when the Dutch found out about this, they jumped on the opportunity to scooped him up right from under the French. So while Henry Hudson was negotiating with the Dutch for another attempt at exploring the north of Novye Zemlye, and a route that way to the Orient, which is above that Russian island, he received a package from a friend. Well, that friend just happened to be John Smith, who had founded the settlement at Jamestown. Smith stated that he believed there was a passage to the west via America, and he provided maps that were given to him by natives that showed waterways of the North American continent, basically including the Great Lakes. So, anyways, Hudson, took that, but he went on and headed towards Novye Zemlye. But everyone was freezing, and they ran into more ice, obviously, because it's pretty far up there. And being the 1600s, the North Atlantic, and that area was, would be cold, much colder than probably what it is now. So miserable and obviously not going to be able to continue that route, Hudson convinced his crew to sail towards America based on the information provided by John Smith. So they spent the next 3 or 4 months charting the coastline of upper northeast of North America. They were stopping here and there and traded with the natives. And on a few occasions, they encountered hostility, had some confrontations. One particular one that was documented was on July 25th, when a particular altercation was logged in Robert Jewett's log. He wrote this entry, quote, "The 5 and 20th, very fair weather and hot. In the morning we manned our skip with 4 muskets and 6 men and took one of your shallops and brought you aboard. Then we manned our boat and scoot with 12 men and muskets, 2 more stump pieces or motorers, and drew the savages from their houses as they would have done us." So it sounds like, and that's end quote. It sounds like they went and raided like a village, a native village, and supposedly this was all done, and Henry Hudson didn't have any issue with it, or didn't, speak of having any issue with it. So it's kind of a little bit disturbing. So they basically turned on the savages, basically said, they would do it to us, so we'll do it to them. In September of 1609, they reached the New York Bay and up what is now known as the Hudson River. However, the claim of them discovering the bay, the Hudson Bay there, can be disputed, since there were multiple maps that show this bay and river prior to 1609. However, he got the bay and the river there got named after him. They spent the next few days traveling up and down the river. They traded with natives, and in some cases had altercations. Because not all the natives, you got to think of this time period, it's a very wild environment, and some natives were happy and were willing to trade with them, and others were hostile, because they were basically looked upon probably as invaders into their land. So anyways, the land that they were in there along the Hudson River, the land is described as being pleasant in the Hudson's logs. However, in Jewett's logs, he has a lot of discrepancies with Hudson's accounts, especially when it deals with the natives. Hudson was very, pleasant and very positive with the natives, but Jewett was very suspicious of them. By September 23rd, 1609, they realized that the river will not give them the passage that they seek, and they decide to turn around. Hudson's account with the natives put them in a positive light. However, in contradiction, Jewett states on a few occasions in his log that the natives, can't be trusted. On September 29th, they anchored in Newburgh Bay. Robert Jewett writes, quote, The 9 and 20th was dry close weather. The wind at south and south by west. We weighed early in the morning and turned 3 leagues by low water, and anchored at the low end of the reach, for it's 6 leagues long. Then there came certain Indians in a canoe to us, but would not come aboard. After dinner, there came the canoe with other men, where all 3 came aboard us. They brought Indian wheat, which we bought for trifles. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we weighed as soon as the ebb came, and turned down to the edge of the mountains, or the northernmost of the mountains, and anchored, because the island hath many points and a narrow channel, and hath many eddy winds. So we rode all night quietly in 7 fathoms of water. On October 2nd, they got ambushed, and they have arrows shot at them, apparently led by a native that they had held captive at an earlier altercation. Several natives died that day when Hudson ordered the ship's guns to be fired. They turned the ship and left the bay and headed towards home. So I think this kind of shows the situation they're in. They just had some natives on board the ship with them. They bought some wheat, Indian wheat from them, and it was very, cordial, very trusted, environment there. But then a couple days later, they get attacked by them. And so anyways, on October 5th, 1609, Robert Jewett records, October the 5th, 1609, we continue our course towards England without seeing any land by the way. All the rest of this month of October and on the 7th day of November, being Saturday, by the grace of God, we arrived safely in the range of Dartmouth in Devonshire. So the interesting fact is that they arrived back in England and not back in Amsterdam, because remember, they were sailing for the Dutch. And since he was sailing for the Dutch, but he's an Englishman, he was arrested. Henry Hudson was arrested for treason, and his ship, the Hopewell, was seized by the authorities. So the fourth voyage of Henry Hudson took place in April of 1610. Once again, he's searching for a northwest passage to the Orient. This time he was sailing for England again, which is kind of amazing because he had been put in jail after his last voyage because he was English sailing for the Dutch. So he was arrested basically on treason. But he's sailing again for the English, and this time they sailed past Greenland and across the Davis Strait, which is towards North America. And they eventually turned into what is now known as Hudson Bay. And June 1610, they run into ice. So right there, that shows you, because I'm pretty sure, June of present day, you wouldn't see ice in the Hudson Bay. I mean, it's kind of late in the season. But anyways, the crew is suffering. They're freezing cold. They're suffering. Some of them are suffering from scurvy. And also they're becoming very disobedient, and it's very hot. It's not an easy situation to be in. And so basically a decision has to be made. They just ran into ice in the bay, and we either have two choices here. We either turn back. So, do they want to continue to search for Northwest Passage or turn back towards home? If they keep searching, it's June, but winter will be on. They're already running in the ice, so they'll basically have to make shelter and wait out the winter. That means not only providing shelter, but then you have to start hunting, you have to fishing, you do some fishing, you have to collect firewood, you have to prepare, because it's a very inhospitable environment along the Hudson Bay there, and I'm sure they have nasty, pretty heavy winters, and back then they probably had horrible winters. So, and then on top of that, you have to worry about natives. You got natives all in that area, and what's their temperament? You don't know. Are they going to be hostile? They're going to be friendly? Who knows? These are all things you got to think about, and because of the ice and the bay freezing, they also have to get the boat up out of the water. So they got to figure out a way to get the ship kind of dry docked, so the ice doesn't crush the hull of the ship. So that's a lot to take on if you decide to stay. And of course, Hudson seems to be pretty strong-headed and strong-willed. He decides that they'll stay and continue their search in the spring of 1611. So on June 18th, 1611, they start sailing again. Basically, they're, the water's freed up enough and the weather's changed enough that they can continue. They survived a very tough winter, and they're back on the water now. Hudson makes some changes to the crew, and this does not go over well. Not to mention, food is running short, and the crew is wanting to get home. And these crew changes apparently were out of normal routine, like normal promotional ranks, I guess you would say. So on June 20th, they get stuck in the ice again, and Hudson turns the ship to the west, and the crew is ready to turn the ship around and head home. Well, on June 21st of 1611, it goes bad, and mutiny comes. Henry Hudson, his son, and 7 men who were loyal to Hudson are placed on a skiff and set sail in the icy James Bay. And basically they were never heard from again. And although, Hudson was never heard from again, there is an oral account within an Indian tribe in that area that states a white man came ashore after being abandoned, or some white men came ashore after being abandoned by their mates, and those white men joined the Indians and lived with them. It is interesting to note, though, that Thomas Buttons, who was a sea captain, had returned to the area in between 1612 and 1613 and searched for Hudson, but was never found him. Then again, in 1614, Captain Gibbon came. However, he was stopped early on by ice, so he never actually got to the Hudson Bay. And from 1615 to 1616, Hudson's mate, his name was Bylot, I think, searched the area and found no trace of Hudson also. And like I said, it's interesting because of the dynamics of the crew. Like I said, a lot of the grunt type workers were just people they picked off the street. So, and a lot of the captains, there was very, small difference even between being a captain and being a pirate. So you don't know what happened of Hudson and, the whole mutiny situation. So, and though, it's funny though that although Hudson had failed in his career in regards to a search for Northwest Passage of the Orient, he's been memorialized in many ways and has gone down in history books as a great explorer. So, he's got plenty of stuff dedicated to him. And it's also interesting that he has more bodies of water named after him than any other person. So even though basically his career was a failure, he founded, or, he has a lot of areas, a lot of bodies of water named after him. It's very, it's crazy. It's also noteworthy that Hudson is credited with founding New York City area, basically. But the reality is that the area was explored and documented on maps prior to that. And in reality, he explored the area, but the Dutch were the first to purchase the land that is now New York City. And they purchased it in 1609. But prior to that, the area had been discovered in 1524 by the French. So that's another little oddity there that, there's a lot of interesting things about him, his career not being successful, yet he is credited with a great deal of stuff, and a great deal of discoveries, and some of which, he probably didn't actually discover, that, there was documentation or maps showing that other cultures or other groups had already sailed the area. And probably, just another example of, the history books being a little off, but he is the one who is, whose name is on it. So, but anyways, that's Henry Hudson in a nutshell. Nobody knows what came of him after he was set off on the skiff. There's, like I said, there's Indian lore, Indian oral stories talking about him having come ashore with his crew there and his son and living with the Indians and for who knows how long. But it would be an interesting story to, basically go investigate. And I don't know how far you would get in that area, but I'm sure there are probably still natives that were, tribes from that area that still exist and probably could tell you the actual full story of, what they believe and what they were told by their ancestors. Might do some digging. If I can find that, we'll do an addendum to this episode about that. But I thought it was interesting when I read about Henry Hudson and heard about him through history books and for through my life on and off, and through the names of bodies of water and stuff that are named after him. But I didn't realize that he was really only known for what happened between 1607 and 1611, and basically the rest of him is a mystery. So before and after that period. So, all right, everybody. Well, that was our episode for tonight. Henry Hudson was it was very interesting. A lot of weirdness around his life, which I guess part of you can account to this being the 1600s, not having much records about when he was born and what he did before his voyages, and what happened after he was set sail, basically by his crew and after they mutinied. So very interesting story, and I thought it was interesting when I heard about it. I didn't realize it like everybody else. We learn about this stuff in the history books, but I don't recall learning that he was basically told to get off his ship and they set him to sail in James Bay to who knows what demise. So some rough fellas back then to do stuff like that. I mean, even if you weren't happy with something, go lock him in the bottom of the ship or something, go home, and then when you get home, tell him to get off or whatever. But I guess I don't know. Anyway, so it was interesting, and we thought you might enjoy that because it was interesting for us to research it. Do you have anything, buddy, before we get out of here?
Nope.
All right. As we state every episode, if you have an encounter or an experience or anything like that you want to share with us, it doesn't matter how weird it is. We get up and cut up on this show, but we're not making fun of anybody because we don't know what people see. People see stuff, and there's so much in this world we can't explain. There's just there's just too much. We can't. There's people seeing too many things, and multiple people claiming to see similar things. Everybody can't be conspiring to make this stuff up. So, don't hesitate, to call and talk to us. It doesn't matter what the situation is, what the scenario is, what the story is. Please, hit us up on our email, unexplained.reality@yahoo.com. You can hit us on Instagram, on Twitter, send us direct message, whatever, Facebook Messenger, Facebook. We have the group you can join. Whatever means you need to, just reach out to us. If you want to talk on the phone, you don't want to put it down in writing, that's fine. Send us an email, and we'll get you a number you can call us on, and we'll chat. So we'd love to hear from you. Another thing we'd love for you to do, if you're listening to this via iTunes, please go to iTunes, to our podcast, and leave us a review and rate us. If nothing else, just rate us. But the more reviews you leave us and the ratings, they help tremendously. They bump us up not the charts. I mean, we're not trying to be like top of the charts, but it gets makes us more visible to other people that are interested in the same kind of stuff. So, if you're using iTunes, please go rate us, review us, and if you're using some other podcatcher that allows you to rate and review or put stars, please do that. All this helps us. We're growing, and I think we're over 6,000 downloads, which is just amazing to us because we're just two guys talking about stuff we are interested in, and for you 6,000 people to have downloaded our shows and listen to us, amazing. I don't know that they're listening to other episodes. They might listen to the first one. It's like, this guy, I can't stand to listen to him talk. But anyways, we appreciate it and keep spreading it. Like I said, come visit us, join us, whatever. Follow us, like us, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We're on YouTube. Come subscribe to the channel. If you want to contribute or donate to the show, we're on Patreon and PayPal. And for PayPal, it's just unexplained.reality@yahoo.com is our account there. And outside of that, we want to thank Ricky Young Music, as usual, rickyyoung.com, for letting us graciously use his music for outros and intros and whatever we throw it in there. We ask you to go check out cryptidcrate.com. Derek Hayes is doing an amazing job with Cryptid Crate, and we want to help him out. So we ask you to go help him out by subscribing. If you like cryptid stuff and you'd like to get a monthly subscription and have a box show up every month with books and t-shirts and all kinds of cool cryptid stuff, this is the box for you. So go check it out. And also, he's got an amazing podcast called Monsters Among Us. So you should be subscribed to that. If you're not, you need to subscribe to it, rate, review him. It's really a great show. So, and as for the other great shows we listen to, Sasquatch Chronicles, Saswhat, The Graylien Report, Mysterious Universe. What else is there? The Confessionals, Somewhere in the Skies.
Yeah, Somewhere in the Skies. Saswhat.
Into the Foray Radio. We can't forget Miss LeGros. Cryptid Factor, which those guys are, it's a different spin on the cryptid thing, but it's hilarious. Cracks me up. It was a good one. I think that is all that I can think of right now. I don't think I have anything else. Do you have anything else, buddy?
Nope.
Seems like there was something else, but it'll wait till next week if there is. So, hope everybody has a good week, and we apologize again for not being here last week. We hope to try to keep things going every week, at least get an episode out. Maybe in the future we'll be getting an extra one here and there. But anyways, I guess that'll do tonight. Hope everybody has a good week, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
See ya.
Prepare to confiscate the humans' possessions. Possessions secured. Prepare the probe.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Wait a hot second. No need for a probe, man. Why are you doing this anyway?
To learn from your kind. And to obtain your container of treasures.
Container of treasures? Oh, you mean my cryptid crate?
Yes, the cryptid crate you possess. We desire it. We have discovered it to be populated with many objects we find most incredible. Correct. The objects in this container cannot be produced on our home planet.
Well, you don't have to abduct people to get your own cryptid crate.
Elaborate.
Just go to cryptidcrate.com and sign up. On the first of each month, a new box filled with amazing cryptozoology-themed items will come to your mailbox, or spaceship.
Allow us to show appreciation to you, human, for this invaluable information.
Yeah, sure thing. Does this mean you're going to take me back to Earth?
Not exactly.
paragraph on a piece of paper, held by a magnet on the refrigerator, said it all. You can't change the mind of an 18-year-old. Cloud of dust coming from a Gran Torino, taking off. Population, one less restless soul, runaway to below. Gone, make yourself a memory. It's pulling like gravity underneath your skin. You can't turn around and go back again. Free, rolling like the river winds. What's ahead of what you leave behind? Just make it up as you go. Run away to below. Highway 61 underneath your wheels. Summer sun burning up the cotton fields in the Bible Belt. A sharecropper shack from another time. Old rusted out Coca-Cola sign on the sad motel. The ghost of a Robert Johnson says hello. Run away to below. Gone, make yourself a memory. It's pulling like gravity underneath your skin. You can't turn around and go back again. Free, rolling like the river winds. What's ahead of what you leave behind? Just make it up as you go. Run away to below. Nobody's gonna care if it don't matter where. Any road can take you there. Gone, make yourself a memory. It's pulling like gravity underneath your skin. You can't turn around and go back again. Free, rolling like the river winds. What's ahead of what you leave